Welcome to the Fit Girl Magic podcast. If you are ready to find your inner magic, develop great habits, and a rock-steady mindset to feel confident, comfortable, and fit in your body, you are in the right place. I am Kim Barnes-Jefferson, and I'll be giving you weekly doses of health, fitness, and life tips sprinkled with humor and real talk. If you're ready to be consistent without the stress of perfection, magic makers, it's time to slip into your favorite pair of PJs, grab some coffee, kick back, and listen to today's show. This week's iTunes review is brought to you by M.L. Martel. She writes, 5 stars. Kim is more than just knowledgeable in just health and fitness. She is supportive, reassuring, and on the level. She gives it to you straight, just the way most people need it. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. I really appreciate that review. And you too can review Fit Girl Magic Podcast. Just go to iTunes or wherever you subscribe to this show and just leave me a 5-star review. I love them. I take them to heart. I just want to make sure that I'm bringing you the best stuff. So thank you so much for all of you who have left me a review so far. I can't wait to highlight you. Magic makers, I just got off the call with Caitlin Donovan, and we talked all about burnout. And, she describes burnout as the buildup of resentment. And I was blown away by that. Because if you think about it, we've lost our way because we're so pissed off about things that we are allowing in our lives, things that we are resentful for. And the more we become resentful, it's showing us that we are letting situations, people, life interfere with our boundaries. And we haven't set clear boundaries. And we need to determine for ourselves, what do we have to do different so that we don't feel so resentful? And as we were talking through this conversation, I just was thinking of so many situations in my life, so many situations in my clients' lives that I see it so clearly, the resentment. And how that resentment just eats away at you, that you feel like you have no other choices, no other ways to deal with it. So you just shut down and you just take it as it is and you become pissed off. And wow, she gives some great tips, tools, techniques about how to best manage burnout, how to turn resentment, righteousness into a productive way to live. How do you identify it and how you start chipping away at it? So I've already given away too much of the conversation. Have a listen. And man, oh man, do me a favor. If there's something of this podcast that resonates with you, do me a favor. Take a screenshot of it and tag me and tag someone who needs to listen to this because it is that good. Thanks so much, Magic Makers. Have a listen. Oh, Magic Makers. Man. This is going to be an amazing, amazing episode. Okay, I say it all the time, but this one is like right in the heart of something that I have faced like multiple times. I burnt myself to the ground, only to burn myself back down to the ground. They say you can't have a house fire twice. You can. And if you've ever felt like your body is a house fire, your life is a house fire, you've just been like burnt to a freaking crisp, and maybe you're still smoking, you want to listen in. My girl, Caitlin, she is going to help you fix your burnout, even if you don't recognize it, because that's where we're going to start. How do you recognize burnout? Because all of us are in that go, 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 go mentality. And then how do you heal, right? How do you heal? And so the one story that I've, stalked Caitlin a little bit before I got her on the phone, she says that she was laying in bed with a cast in her leg. And that's when this work was like, girlfriend, today's the day you're going to frickin' listen. and make this a thing because many people need you. So welcome to the show, Miss Caitlin Donovan.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. When you reached out and asked me to come on, and you were so thoughtful with your requests, and I thought, I'm not like important enough or big enough to deserve this much like respect right now. Right. I was so flattered, and I'm so thrilled to be here with you and to chat this my favorite topic, over and over again.
Yeah. I stalk people. I'm a lazy stalker, so don't worry. I'm not going to pop out of your shower because, if you came to my house, I'd be a great stalker. I'd probably put on a bra to stalk you, but I can't stalk people. I can stalk you online. I'm very good at it. And just everything you are posting, I've listened to a few episodes of your podcast. I was like, man, these are my clients. This was me. And I was like, I need people to hear this because I feel like right now in Rona times, despite it being a horrible pandemic, I think this has given us a giant pause.
Mm-hmm.
A pause to look at what was happening in our lives pre-Rona and what's going to happen post-Rona. And for me, I know I was back in that hamster wheel, and this has put that parachute on me to be like, girlfriend, you're ramping back up to where you were. So talk to me about your kind of you already had a bottom, but you had the bottom where the work was holding you down, saying, please do this work.
Yeah. So I had been, I burnt out for about 7 years, sort of over and over and over again, because that's how burnout works, right? It works in a cycle. And that's why it's so hard to recognize, because we feel like we keep getting better. And
yes.
we're paying attention to those moments. We're like, yeah, but 3 months ago it was better. So it's not that bad, but you never get above a 3 out of 10.
Yes.
And you kind of start accepting a 2 out of 10 because that's what you're in. So I was in that for a long time. And then I took 2 years basically to heal. And it started becoming obvious to me that this was the work that I was supposed to do. I still have an acupuncture practice and I love seeing acupuncture patients, but I only do it 2 days a week now. So I'm in my office in Midtown Manhattan Tuesdays and Thursdays only, because I know that I need to create space for the rest of this work. And the rest of this work is helping people through burnout. And I had healed. I was I was on the other side of it. And then I ruptured my Achilles tendon and ended up in surgery and was told to sit down for 4 months.
Mm. Yeah. No one wants to be told to sit down.
No, especially not me. I have not had a seat my whole life. I was a gymnast growing up. I'm a mover. I'm a doer. I'm a shaker. I moved to California when I was 19. I went to Argentina and met a Polish man who became my husband and moved my life to Poland, and then decided that wasn't exciting enough. So we moved to Prague, and then we came back to New York, a year ago. So I've always been doing a lot. We went on vacation and skied 120 miles over 6 days, cross-country skied, because we're crazy. Exactly. I like doing, so and then the universe said, well, you're going to sit here. And you're going to sit here good and long, because you literally cannot put weight on your foot for 12 weeks at a minimum. And when you start again, it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
So I was in this space, and I went to bed crying and just thinking, when I get to these spaces, I have a very strong spiritual life. And that my spiritual life includes, number one, community. So to me, that's friends and family. That's my number one spot for spirituality, because I believe that connection to one another is spirituality. And the next role in that for me is my ancestry. So I talk to my dead grandmothers a lot, as what people might think that's weird. I don't really care, honestly, at the end of the day, if it's my grandmother's or if it's energy or if it's my head. I don't care. It helps me. It makes me feel better. It gives me clear answers. And that's that. People say Jesus saves them. My grandmother saved me. Cool.
Right.
If it's Jesus for you, that's cool with me. I don't care what we call it. And so I went to bed and I was crying and I was like, okay, grandmothers, what the actual fuck right now?
Mm-hmm.
What am I supposed to do with this time? I can't get out of bed. I can't even make myself tea, because I can't even bring it back to my bed with me, because I need arms on my crutches. I don't even have a hand. I can't do anything. what do you want me to do? And I woke up in the morning and I just had fried the Burnout podcast, fried the Burnout podcast, fried the Burnout podcast, like crossing over my brain.
Wow.
And I had run a podcast for about 12 episodes in the past, a short one. I knew I wasn't really great at it that time around. I was just reading my blog posts because I wasn't sure what to say and I was a little awkward. And like, I'm a talker, so it was weird that I didn't really know what to do.
Yeah.
But I didn't get into a rhythm with it. And I knew that this one had to start off being an interview style. So I started doing it and designing it, and everything just kept coming together. Yeah. And then I started saying, you know what, but I am a burnout coach. I actually do coach people through burnout, and I've been doing it for years without actually calling it that with my acupuncture patients, you know?
Exactly.
And so I started saying that, and people started hiring me. And I was like, wait, what is happening?
Yeah.
But I couldn't do acupuncture, and that was the only thing I'd ever done. You know, like I was a bartender to get myself through grad school, and then I started doing acupuncture, and that's the only thing I'm qualified to. I mean, I'm a coach, obviously, but like my degree is in Chinese medicine. Like I'm not qualified to do anything else. So when I was forced to lay down for 4 months, like I couldn't see patients. Like what? I just was, you know, what am I going to do? And this world just opened up before me, and you know, here we are.
Yeah, and it's funny how I think what feels easy, we dismiss, you know, because it's like, oh yeah, I've been burnt out. I could totally talk about this all damn day. And then you're like, but I can't make money at that. I'm an acupuncturist. Like, who would want to talk to me about burnout? And I know I've been doing a lot of Chinese medicine. And so by the time someone comes that Chinese medicine route, they've tried
everything else.
And you are I got nothing to lose. Or my friend told me that they did, you know, so like you're not the first thought like, hey, I got this nagging shoulder problem, acupuncture, you know, I'm going to go physical therapy, then I'll go here, and then finally I come to you. So I feel like that's the same thing with burnout.
Yes.
Before we got on the call, you know, we talked about how like, if we say our life, on a 1 to 5, right? And we're like 5 feels like amazing, and 1 feels like, oh, get me, I can't. So many of us, like you said, you get to like a 3, you get to a 2, and you're like, you know, I couldn't get through today.
Right.
But we don't know what 5 feels like because we keep digging ourselves back to 1.
Well, and we keep thinking that like 3.2 is close enough to 5.
Right.
Because we're over half, you know, like, so it must be sort of okay. And this is, you know, when you're going through burnout, there's physiological changes that happen to your brain, right? So your actual gray matter, the nerve cells in your brain will start to diminish. They shrink, they disappear. Like this is actually happening with long-term chronic stress. I'm not making this up. You can look at the research, you know, like this is actually happening. So what's happening is, so imagine that this was happening to the end of your fingers instead of to your brain. So every single day, the edge of your fingers is getting, you know, a little bit shorter by like a 1/10 of a millimeter. We're talking minimal changes. So over the course of a year, you know, you've lost maybe like down to halfway through your fingernail, but over time you've been adjusting the way that you've been using your hands so you don't even really notice.
Yeah.
This is burnout, right? You keep adjusting the way that you're functioning in the world to align with the amount of energy you have, to align with what's going on in your world. And you don't notice that you have to keep adjusting and keep adjusting and keep adjusting, and that it keeps changing. Like there's no regrowth, there's no return to normal. And you've been in that cycle for so long that you just don't see it until all of a sudden you are like missing your entire nails on both hands. And you're like, oh, holy shit. You know, so missing your nails on both hands for most people is like suicide ideations, right? I wish I could just drive off the road and hit a tree because I can't do this anymore. It's something that clients tell me a lot. This is like Bell's palsy, you know, when half your face droops, or stroke. You know, people are like, oh my God, something serious is happening with me now. Like that's a common side effect of stress. It's severe depression or anxiety, or a mixture of the two. It's migraines, or I see really commonly like a very low immune system. So somebody who's been sick with colds or flus like every 2 or 3 weeks for like a year, and they just can't seem to get out of it. Those are the things that make people stop and say, oh shit, I don't have fingertips.
Yeah, agreed. It's funny. The migraines and the immune system are the one things I always tell my clients. They're like, oh, I'm sick again this week. And I was like, you're a stress ball.
Yeah.
I'm like, stress is going to find, like, stress is like water. It's going to find the weakest link and it's going to find its way to you.
Exactly.
And you're right. Like, I think if stress was more physical, like if I was losing my fingernails, I was losing my eyebrows, I would be like, whoa, 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 whoa. But because it happens, it's hidden, and we're so adaptable.
Yes.
That, like, it's so true. Like, it's going to get better next week.
Right.
And we're very good at kicking the rock down the path. And I see it all the time. Like, client be like, oh yeah, I didn't exercise this week. I had, all these things due at work. Great. Awesome. So how about sleep? Or how about other things that we could do? And they're like, well. And you're just like, okay.
Yeah, but it's, even I still fall victim to this. Like, I am not immune to this. We're human. And I think one of the things that's really important to me about this message is that this is a natural thing that people do. Like, this isn't your fault. This is just, we adapt. My shoulder was hurting me for about 3 months during COVID. And I couldn't get treatment. I would have gone to an acupuncturist, but I couldn't get treatment because everybody was obviously closed, So, but instead of actually trying to fix it myself, I started adjusting the way I was using my arm. I was calling my husband. We have really heavy Polish pottery plates, and I would take them out of the dishwasher and ask my husband to put them in the cabinet because they were too heavy for me to put in. Right. So I was adjusting. I was making those changes and protecting my shoulder, but I wasn't healing. I was just avoiding.
Right. And so, if I'm listening right now, and how would I know that I'm burnt out?
So for me, there's two really big things that you'll notice. One of them is that you have a lot of resentment, which is usually accompanied by a ton of righteousness. Like, you're doing things the right way. Everybody else is messing up. You're giving everybody good advice. You're always helpful. You're always the one that people fall back on. Nobody's listening to you. And you don't know why you get into this like constant mode of resentment where you're annoyed with people all the time. Your phone dings at 2:00 and it's a friend and you're like, don't my friends know I'm busy during the day? Like, why would they text me right now? It's kind of like, when you have this sort of like irritability, resentment, this sort of feeling that no one really understands how hard it is for you and nobody appreciates how hard it is for you and nobody is creating space for it to be hard for you. Like, it seems like nobody can see how hard this is for you. I remember when I was in Prague and I was still like in the burnt out phase, my friends would be like, hey, let's go to lunch tomorrow. And I'd be like, don't they understand that I have like shit to do?
Lunch? I'm not a lady who lunches.
I can't lunch. Like, what do you mean? When the reality was that I started work at 3:00 2 days a week, I could have easily made time for lunch, but I was so overwhelmed and in my own shit that I didn't understand that was of my own creation at the time, So resentment is a really big sign. And I think the other one that people need to look out for is that the coping mechanisms that you've used for a long time, the way that you've adjusted for a long time stops being effective. Mm-hmm. So if you used to be able to like come home and just have a cocktail and then you would fall asleep and the next day you'd be sort of okay. Now you're coming home and having a cocktail, you're laying down, but your brain is still kicking, so you can't sleep, and you wake up in the morning and you have a hangover, but you only had one drink. Like this kind of thing. So like, or you're, with exercise, when you're really truly burnt out, you can't do high intensity exercise. We're talking all of a sudden you're sliding into yin yoga because that's all you've got left. And so if you usually, you had a kind of stressful week, but you'd go out for a run in the afternoons and you'd run your 3 miles and you'd come back and you would feel better. You start to run those 3 miles and instead of feeling better, you feel worse. You feel more tired. You're not recovering. After exercise, things like that. So anything that you sort of used, whether it's a healthy habit or a non-healthy habit, is totally irrelevant. Mm-hmm. Anything that you used to help yourself through difficult times, when it stops working, you're burnt out.
Right. So I want to, you like laid down a lot of stuff. So
sorry, I do that.
No, that's awesome. I write notes. So that way I'm like, wait, let me make sure we hit this topic. Okay. So we talked about resentment, and a lot of what you said for resentment is, I think, how do I separate resentment from victim? So like, how do I know if I'm just going into that like victim place versus I am just like I just have too much coming at me right now?
A lot of times it's the same.
Okay.
A lot of times it's the same because you feel like when you're burnt out, you feel a lack of control. And when you feel a lack of control, you automatically enter a victim mindset.
Gotcha. Yeah. Cause I'm thinking of a few of my clients that I know are burnt out, but they don't want to admit it to themselves just yet.
Yeah.
And I just see the things that the barriers that they put up. And I'm like, it's part, so I'm having the victim conversation, and it's like, how do we see ourselves around, if we weren't.
So this is why I like the resentment conversation. I think the victim conversation, especially over the past few years, has turned into, and I'm not saying that you do this, but I've seen this happen in the life coaching space and in the psychology space, that we've turned it into like, you're doing it wrong and you're being a victim.
Yeah. And
I don't believe that people do this on purpose. When you create this kind of persona, you do it out of a sense of trauma or out of a sense of overwhelm. Like you don't do it like on purpose unless you are psychologically diagnosable with some sort of disorder. If you have borderline or if you're narcissistic, like you will do that on purpose to manipulate people, but that's not the general population. That's not the normal population. So I like to talk about resentment because to me, we fall into patterns of resentment when we are overgiving from our side.
Yes.
And it allows us to take responsibility for that piece and sort of let go of a little bit of the blame. So it helps people release this victim mindset without ever saying the word victim.
Yeah. You like ding, 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 the overgive.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if it was a podcast or a blog post I read about the boundaries. And so I think for many people, resentment comes from, I might be, we all have that friend who might ask, and you're the person who's a people pleaser. Yes. And at some point you're pissed, but you're like, I really can't say I'm pissed. So you start to like resent when you like see her name flash on your phone. You're just like,
exactly.
Sarah, like, what does she want now?
Right. And that's exactly it. And that's when we can say to people, look, listen, it's not really Sarah's job to understand your emotional or physical bandwidth. And if you went to a store every Tuesday for the past 6 years and bought a red popsicle, and they always had red popsicles, and then suddenly you went there on your regular Tuesday at 2 p.m. and you tried to buy a red popsicle and they didn't have one, you might be a little bit annoyed, right? Like, she just thinks that there's a red popsicle there. Like, that's not her fault. You created this relationship together. She asked for a red popsicle, you gave her one. She asked for a red popsicle, you gave her one. She asked for a red... Not a bad thing that you did. Not a bad thing that you did. But at some point, it went against your internal integrity. You crossed your own boundary of how much you're willing to give. And instead of using that moment where you initially felt resentment to say, you know what, I need to shift this relationship a little bit. We might need to have a difficult conversation. You kept going. Yeah. And disliking it and then being mad at her because you don't like it.
Right. And then that madness turns into like, you're pissed at everybody.
Right. Exactly. Because nobody's paying attention. Nobody's listening. I'm always doing for everybody else.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh my God.
Let's not get mad at the friends of the world that are requesting of us that we act as the person that we have always been. It requires some grace. To build new boundaries and to encourage people to treat you differently when you have taught them for an extended period of time that they can treat you that way, right? So I don't believe in this sort of like cancel culture, like I made a boundary and that person ignored it, they're toxic, like bang. No, like slow down, sister friend. let's roll this back a little bit. Let's look at what created this situation and what really needs to change in order for you to feel okay again. And just note that she might need to be reminded a few times because, you know, she always thought that you had the red popsicle and you don't sell them anymore.
Right. It's funny because it's like as you're talking, you know, I always say to my clients is like, I want you to think about like one of my favorite shows is CSI. And I was like, think of your life as CSI. And it's like, you're the dead body. Like, let's reenact the crime scene because we all play a part in our life. And sometimes we're the leading lady. Sometimes we're a supporting cast. And sometimes just sitting on the couch, just being quiet. As you're, you know, breaking down this resentment, I see, you know, so many different situations where I can be really pissed off. And when I say I see I as the woman in general, where maybe it's your Corona times, right? We've been trapped at home. All of a sudden, I'm the frickin' school teacher. I'm the maid. I'm this. Like, plus, I got to hop on 500 Zoom calls. I have to figure out technology, blah, 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 blah. It's really easy for you to go from 0 to 60 really fast. And I can get that feeling burnt out because I've had, you know, one of my guests, we talked about self-care as a mom, and she's like, she goes, I'm not fit to be a special needs teacher for my 6-year-old. She's like, so I cried in the shower this morning.
Right. Exactly.
And, you know, so I think to a lot of people who are listening, I want you to think about, what are you feeling resentful right now in your life? And it's okay to feel resentful. Even if it's about your kids, or maybe you're caring for aging parents, you know, whatever, annoying husbands, annoying wives, whatever. It's okay to feel resentful. But what I feel Caitlin is saying is that you have to raise your hand and start talking for what you want as a boundary, not in a go fuck yourself like you.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Because it's like you said, if you keep giving me red popsicles and one day you only have green and you blow up, how am I to know that you've come to become accustomed to the red popsicle and how much you really like the red popsicle? And I see it, you know, in some of my, you know, personal relationships. I see the burnout for them. And, you know, as for what I do, and probably what you do too, you're like, take a look. Like, no one wants you crying in their lives.
Right. That can be really tough. But I think that what you said is important. Like, and resentment for me, like I have an online course that's like super cheap, you know, it's like the entry level, like here it's a resentment journal, and it comes with a course so that it guides you through how to use a resentment
love it
journal.
We're going to link this up because some of you guys need it.
It's so cool. It's really great. And the thing that I love about the resentment journal is I've been playing with resentment for a long time, and it's an emotion that I now really love and appreciate because it is the emotion that allows me to know that my boundaries, either I'm crossing my own boundary or somebody else is crossing my boundary. Like, resentment is the boundary crossing emotion. So I think it's just so fascinating if we allow ourselves to look at it from a place of curiosity, like you're saying, BCSI, right? Instead of judgment.
Right.
Like, let's be curious, like, oh, I'm resentful. Like, what would have had to be different for me to not feel this way? And I even take it to like inanimate objects. Like, if you make eggs every day in the morning for breakfast, or say you have a smoothie every single day in the morning for breakfast, and your blender sort of sucks. So you always have to run it twice because the first time, like, the banana chunks are not going to get chopped up, you know? So it's not going to be smooth and you want it. So you always have to run it twice, and you're always annoyed that you have to run it twice. Like, this is an internal boundary that you have to deal with. Upgrade your damn blender.
Right. Exactly. So I love your approach because it's more about, okay, the bananas, like, I'm pissed every day that I'm chunking down a banana.
Yeah.
For me, usually it's the avocado. And so you're pissed, but instead of like every day just being like, God damn it, you should be like, you know what? I'm going to sit down, go to Amazon and get a new damn blender. So it's like asking yourself, you know, Tony Robbins is my boyfriend. I don't know if you knew that.
Okay. Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
How's he doing?
He's amazing. He's
Great,
just amazing.
great.
So he always says, when you ask better questions, you get better answers.
Better answers. Yeah.
So what you're saying is like, okay, what is causing this resentment? So just like take a time out, like press pause and being like, what are you resentful about all of your life? And then kind of start asking yourself questions like, is it as simple as getting a new freaking blender?
Right.
Because, maybe you talking to Sarah about the red popsicles and you might not be someone who's into confrontation.
Right.
But the blender, Amazon can get it to you here in 3 days.
Yeah.
And like
24 hours if you got Prime.
Right. Bada boom, bada bing.
Done.
And it's off your list and you can move on to something else. And
exactly. Always take care of the lowest hanging fruit first.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the first thing you should do when you realize there's resentments is have a conversation with your husband. Relax.
Right.
Like let's replace the blender and get you a new egg pan.
Right.
Make sure your knives are sharp.
Right.
First, let's do that. Let's make sure that you have 3 pairs of pants that really fit you and you feel comfortable in.
Yes.
Because every time you put on those jeans and you're annoyed, you're taking that annoyance with you into other relationships. And then you're wondering why the boundaries are being crossed.
Right. Or why why doesn't anyone want to go out for drinks with me anymore? Because you're always bitching.
Yeah, like stop. Make it easier for yourself. And not everybody can always afford to go out and buy like a Vitamix, so I also understand that. So we have to go with the lowest hanging fruit. What's the smallest, easiest thing that you can do to inject more ease and flow into your life right now?
Oh, ease and flow. Oh my gosh, you're just speaking my love language right now. Ease and flow. And, I want to say this because, so as the world is starting to wake up, I was addicted to busy and I didn't realize it. And I think most of us don't realize when you're addicted to stuff, it's like any addiction, like when an alcoholic, it takes a long time for them to be like, hey, I got a problem. Yeah. I was addicted to busy. And this like Rona times has really forced me to look at my day. And now, so I'm not resentful. I've been very good about these are my boundaries. Kind of like you said, I love acupuncture, but I love this work. But I still like to keep my hands in the mix. So Tuesday and Thursdays, that's going to work for me. And so that's where I've started to really think about that. And that's where I want folks to really think about that. Like you can determine your destiny. Mm. And if, like she said, write it out. I'm going to link up her resentment journal because I'm a journal junkie and I believe in it. Tells you so much shit that you never knew. And there's like some people that I'm like, I need to gift this to them. I'm not going to say their names.
We can work something out. I'm
not going to say their names out loud, but if you get a special surprise from me, I was thinking about you. So I like it because you pick the low-hanging fruit. Is it the banana? Is it knives? Is it so-and-so? And there might be things that have been like sitting in your heart for so long. I think about like the Brene Brown shame, like that this is exactly the same work.
Exactly
where
the same.
People have felt ashamed since the 5th grade because someone called them a fat Oompa Loompa on the playground. Yeah. And they've been holding it and they're now 50.
Yeah. And somebody said the other day, oh, that blouse looks nice on you. And they heard, oh, you got a bigger blouse because you're fat now?
Yes, exactly. And you're just like, what? So I feel like I love having to, one, identify that you're resentful.
Yes.
And 2, looking at it and saying, okay, what could I change? Because maybe there's certain things you can't change. So if I'm caring for an aging parent, well, maybe I can't change that I just can't change that situation. But the other things in my life so that I feel less annoyed.
Yeah. Well, and this is when people say, well, I don't think I have resentment. I say, how often do you walk around saying you hate everybody? Because if you walk around saying that you hate everybody, you have resentment.
Right.
That's just the truth. And we talked about this, actually. I did a workshop last week called the Great Restarting After the Great Pause.
Right.
And we talked about this sort of idea of, getting your values in order and letting go of the things that don't serve you and this kind of thing. And somebody said, well, all the things that are like really heavy in my basket right now are like my kids and my aging parents. Like I can't let that go. And I said, okay, well, let's talk about that for a second. let's just break that down a little bit. Like if you say like, I can't let my kids go. Well, like obviously we're not going for neglect here, people.
Right.
But can you break down what it is that you're doing for your kid over the course of the day? Like, are they 7? They can scramble their own eggs.
Right.
Like let's sort of really break down what it is you're doing and what's absolutely still necessary. And there are things that are still necessary. I am not saying that you can give them all the responsibility and like free bird. No, I am saying though, that it is likely that you are overdoing a couple of things in the relationship. A couple. Maybe we'll only find one or 400, but maybe we'll only find one. Fine, let's find it and take it off your plate. There's no need for you. I had a client once, she said, oh, well, you know, my daughter, like I have to get her clothes ready every night. I said, isn't your daughter 10? She said, yeah. I said, why are you getting her clothes ready? She's 10. Well, and I stopped and I said, listen, if this is because you need her to look a certain way,
you gotta let that go.
Because you're afraid of the judgment, and you need to let that go and let that girl get dressed in the morning without your help. Like you do not need to do that. Take that off your plate.
Yeah. Yeah, you're 100% right. I feel like, if we were to break this down, a lot of the pressure that we put on ourselves is 1, self-inflicted, and 2, it's fear of external judgment.
Yeah.
And, it's like, and especially now, like I think social media,
Yeah, of course.
it's really challenging to have the mindset of like, especially as a mommy, like I didn't make my own baby food. Like I bought the jar stuff or, as a business person, like, oh, I'm not standing in front of the Eiffel Tower with my laptop. Like I must be horrible.
I haven't had another photo shoot in ever. Oh no.
Right. Exactly. or it's like, I do fitness and I see women all the time. You scroll through Instagram and you see all these chicks with like, ripped abs and, tank tops. And you're just like, I can barely get throw up off my shirt. And it's like, it's really easy to take all of that in and start to feel like shit and start to say to yourself, like, my life is shit.
Yes.
And so, what could start as like feeling bad for yourself could easily snowball into this resentment. And then it's just like your whole life is crap.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And that's not an easy thing to let go of. And this is something that I talk about a lot, that I find that not a lot of coaches are spending time on, because we all are saying, you can control your own destiny. Well, sort of. Like, there's 7 billion other people on the planet and their choices affect you.
Yes.
And there's people in your community and their choices affect you. So knowing where your center is and making decisions from that place is important. But there will have to be decisions that you make that you're not going to like.
Yes.
And in order to be able to do that and live through it with resilience, you have to take care of yourself enough on the day-to-day so that you have the spare battery to deal with that thing when it comes up. Right? So when we're burnt out, like a lot of times there's an event that happens that makes us realize it. You get sick, somebody else gets sick, COVID, whatever, but it was happening for a long time before that. It's just an event happens, and the event doesn't always have anything to do with you. And I think that that's important. People are like, oh, well, you control how you feel. Yeah, but if your cat dies, you're going to be sad. Like that's normal.
Yeah, exactly.
Like your parents are sick and you have to take care of them. You're stressed out about that. That's just like you're still human. No matter how much you can control, you're still human and you're living a human experience. So let's
be human.
Create some space around that humanity, around the fact that we can't control everything that's happening around us, and we don't create everything that's happening around us. We do with 7 billion other people. Right? So all of these people are creating shit with you all the time. So it's not always going to come out the way you thought it should look.
Right. And then you have to be okay with it. So it's like, I always challenge my clients to go with the good, better, or the best, because it's like life, right? Life, like think about, we're in a giant fucking curveball right now. Like no one could have ever predicted this.
No.
I mean, it's science fiction shit right now.
Yes.
But it's like life is always going to throw you a curveball. Maybe not this big, but there's always going to be a curveball. So as I'm sitting here, I'm listening. I'm like, all right, resentment. I totally get that. And I totally see the things that you can write down and say, okay, these are the things that I know make me like are bubbling up. Like this is making me pissed off. So now, and I've written them down and I go for the low hanging fruit. How do I kind of keep it in a healthy way, you know, that I'm not like constantly like feel like I'm re-adding to the list.
Yeah, well, that happens, I think, naturally over time. Just like the same thing when you work out, you know, you don't get a six pack the first day you do crunches. And so
can you say that again?
Hey guys, listen, you do not get a six pack from doing crunches for a day. Thank you. Public service announcement over. So it works the same when you start to work with the emotions that you've probably been ignoring or not paying attention to for most of your life because you had no idea what to do with them. When you start working with resentment, it feels overwhelming. You know, you do 25 crunches and you're sore the next day. But within a month, you can do 100 and you're feeling pretty good. So with resentment, it's the same process. The more practice you have, the easier it gets. It doesn't take you sitting down with a journal to work it through because you've gone through the process a few times and you can do it quickly in your brain. And you notice it a little bit faster. So you pay attention to it a little bit faster. So you avoid getting to that further place. Meanwhile, to me, transforming resentment is the thing that gives you back the most amount of energy because it sucks so much energy from you on a day-to-day basis. It takes up so much of you. So when you are working through that on a regular basis, you have a lot more energy to expand. So you'll find that things don't bother you as much.
Right.
Because you're not pushed to the edge already.
Right.
So you find yourself that all of a sudden you're a little more agile. You're a little more flexible. So things don't bother you as much. And when they do, you notice it right away and you can work through it. So it's just like exercising a muscle. It's just using the emotion for what it's for. Let's look at it, find the boundary, create the boundary and move on over and over again until it becomes automatic.
Yeah. So it's actually like, so I love this because you're right. Because it is like, you know, starting with like what's happening right now. And as you go through time, starting to recognize like what is a boundary for you? Like what are things that you have to like, you know, put a stake in the ground and say, you know what, this has to happen. And, you know, for a lot of times I make that to my clients. I'm like, I call them your non-negotiables, you know, so it's like, there's like, you know, I like 3 because like, you know, that's too many. More than 3 is too much, remember, but it's like for you to be healthy, what are your non-negotiables? Like what are things, easy things you can do day in and day out that are going to make you feel like you're not compromising all the time? And I feel like burnout could be, you always feel like you're compromising.
Yes, totally.
But then here's the other flip of that. So I think I have really strong boundaries, but for myself, my burnout comes from me being the striver, the
overgiving,
like,
overdoing,
the type A plus.
That's a boundary too.
So
there's a difference between internal boundaries and external boundaries. So what you just said to me was, I have great external boundaries. I don't have great internal boundaries.
Oh, all right. My A plus people, did you hear that?
Right. So this was the thing that was the most difficult for me as well. So I'm the girl that would get on the tram or the T in Boston and an old lady would be climbing up the stairs and I would be glaring at the person sitting in the old
fast enough.
seat.
Yeah.
Yep. She's not moving to my standard, right? So when you're doing that, that's you crossing an internal boundary. That is A, not my fucking business. B, it's rude because I'm judging the person sitting there, assuming that they're not getting up out of a lack of disrespect. But I don't know. Maybe they're like 3 months pregnant and just puked on the way in. How do I know what's going on with them?
Right.
And third, I'm also disempowering that older woman because what I'm saying by taking control of that situation is I don't trust that you have a voice for yourself. Right. I'm going to take care of this for you because I'm the moral police.
Right. You don't know if she's going to get on and be like, hey, girlfriend, get up.
Yeah.
And you don't even know if maybe the woman sitting down was like, didn't even see that the old woman was getting undressed.
Or
Okay.
she has she just sprained her ankle, or she's 3 months pregnant and it's the puking all day, or she has chronic fatigue and you can't see it,
Right.
or,
Right.
right? I can't tell you how many times on the tram in Prague, I asked somebody to get up for an old lady and the old lady said, oh, I'm just going one stop. It's fine. So I was stepping in,
Right.
giving energy to a situation that A, wasn't asking for it. Nobody asked me for help.
Right.
I was taking judgment with me. Right, because I'm thinking these people aren't good at. These people are not on my moral level, right? Because
Right.
I'm better than people, right? So I'm putting myself at a higher level, which is totally egotistical and arrogant. And I'm telling the old woman, like, I don't believe that you have a voice. This woman's been riding these trams for 83
Forever.
years.
Right.
Like she knows what she needs to do, and if she doesn't, that's also not my fault and not my problem. And not my thing to take care of. I can offer her help if I really see her struggling. I can say, hey, listen, is there something that I can help you do? But if she's good, she's good. So do not stop. If your internal boundary is most often crossed when you are solving problems for people that they are not asking you to fix, and you're doing it from a place of righteousness and ego.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right, because the internal boundary could also be the comparison boundary. So I'm looking at other people around me and saying I should be further ahead. So then you push because, there's no finish line. Like no one's put out a finish line for you other than yourself.
Exactly. And you have no idea.
Right.
What that person has, what that person does, what that person goes through, what's happening. I remember when I was at school in Boston, one of my closest friends was a tall black man from Newark, New Jersey. And the girl that I lived with was a really short Afghani girl. So I had a really short Afghani girl on one side and a really tall black man on the other. And these were my two closest people. And the girl that I was a roommate with, she grew up in a very wealthy family, and I did not. So I automatically have money issues with her, but not her fault, but I grew up in Fall River, drugs, gangs, all of it. I didn't have, there was no extras. We'll say it like that. I always had what I needed. I wasn't missing food, but there was no extras.
Yep.
And I was with, my friend from Newark, and we were walking down the street, and something had happened to our other friend's car, and she was complaining about it. And I was like, I don't understand what her problem is. Her father's just going to write a check and it's going to be over. What is the problem? And he looked at me, this kid that grew up in Newark and went through hell in the projects, looked at me and said, Katie, everybody's problems are as big to them as yours are to you. And I was like, oh, I'm an asshole.
And that's very for a college kid, he was
19 at the time.
Yeah. That's stopped you in your tracks.
Yeah. Literally I'm still talking about it 20 years later. So.
Right. And I love those kind of one-off profound moments that you're not expecting. No. It's not from a person you expect to have this wisdom. And you're you say it over and over again. And, I always say that I've been fortunate. I've had great mentors over the years, and it's always things that maybe I didn't understand when they told me 10 years ago. They come out and I'm like, damn, that's what she meant.
Yeah. Well, and so this to me is about the internal boundaries, right? We're comparing our situations, but we don't really know. Yeah.
I mean, they always say you never know someone else's, troubles, whatever happens behind closed doors, you have
you never know. And even if her biggest problem that day was that something happened with her car, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Shut up, stay in your own, take care of your own knot, deal with your own shit. Why are you putting your energy there? It's not helping you. It's not helping her.
Right.
What's the point?
So, and it's so funny because as I'm listening to you, all the things you've given are very, very practical.
Yes, I'm an uber practical person. I'm the practicalist of the practical.
I love it because I like practicality too, because it's life's complicated enough.
Exactly.
And I love it because, it's really sitting down and just getting real with yourself.
Yeah.
getting real with yourself and owning your shit. Like owning, I did a show on radical responsibility, and it's literally sitting down and owning your piece of the pie, right? So that it's no longer this person is doing things to me. It's like, okay, did I have an expectation?
Right.
Did I share that expectation?
Right.
Because a lot of times people will share the expectation after the fact.
Right.
And I see it a lot, in families, like
a lot of unspoken agreements in families that nobody ever talked about.
Right. And, my family, we're very vocal. We are not afraid.
Really? That's so surprising.
Yeah. We're not afraid to say our feelings. And so, but I also have seen, other family dynamics where, like you say what you say. Yeah. In my family. And it's like, we don't think of like, I'm not hurting your feelings. I'm just telling you how I feel.
Right.
And in that way, like, no, there's no this passive aggressive feelings. Right. You didn't say you love red popsicles and I took the last one. And so you're just going to give me the hairy eyeball all night because I took the red popsicle.
Yeah, exactly.
Where in my family, my sister would be like, you fucking took the red popsicle. And I'd be like, do you want it? Like, yeah. And depending on my mood, I'd be like, here, I don't care. Or I'd be like, go fuck yourself. Like, it just does depend on the day.
Yeah, like,
get the green one. It. Yeah, Today's the day you try green. So I love that. And I'm going to link this up in the show notes about your resentment journal, because for me, I wasn't a journaler. I thought that was like, dear diary, so-and-so broke up with me today. Like, I just was not about it.
No, journaling is about honesty.
And I've literally been for 5 years, I say I probably do it easily 90% of the time. Yeah. And it's shocking what comes out. So if you are being, and I think most people don't like to journal because they're like, okay, blank piece of paper.
Right.
What do I do?
This is why I love a guided journal, right? This is why I love, like, it's a fill-inable PDF. You don't even have to write. You can type if you want. You don't even have to use paper. Like, and you can delete it when you're over, so you don't even have to look at it if you don't. Right. But there are clear questions, right? Here, write this here, write that there, and it gives you this sort of distance between yourself and the situation where you can sort of drop the judgment and increase the curiosity. And I think that's the most important part of that for me. Like, and the reason why I think it's such a powerful exercise, because it really creates space for you to actually do the thing without treating yourself poorly.
Right. Yeah. And, I always say, like I said, like, I like tell my clients, I'm like, just look at yourself. Like if you were like a ghost floating above, like, so that way you can distance yourself from yourself. Yes. But I like that, because the other thing I like is one of the things when I first started journaling was I could write down all the resentments, like all the things that are just, making me crazy. And what at the time, my coach encouraged me, she's like, write down everything that's, frustrating you, bothering you. And she goes, and I want you to burn it up. Yeah. And she's like, because I want you to know that that's how, in theory, easy it is to make it go away. Like once you decide that you want it to go away, you could start to chip away at the things that are just like causing you to just be like, ah. Yeah. And that was like, I think
powerful.
It was like amazingly powerful, because like it gave me control. And I think for a lot of people, burnout is all these people want something from me that I'm just like uncle.
And I used to control the situation and control the fact that I was still loved by making sure to give all of these people what they need. And now I've reached a point where I can't give all these people what they need because I'm empty. And I'm afraid that if I don't, I won't be lovable anymore.
Oh, whoa. That's some shit right there. Yeah. It's the lovable. Like it's everyone, maybe maybe your love language is the things that you give. And so like, if you are like, my tank is empty, it's really hard for you to do what you like to do, or maybe that's what people have expected of you. So if you scale back the things that say, we talked about the mom. So say the mom all of a sudden is like, I'm not making you breakfast anymore. I'm not picking out your clothes. Your kid might be like, whoa, like what's going on, mom? Like what, why not? I didn't have one of those moms.
No, neither did I.
Yeah. Yeah. My mom was like, as soon as I was able to like reach into the washing machine, was like, so this is how laundry's done.
Yeah, mine too. Mine too.
I'm grateful. And then when I got a driver's license, she's like, okay, so this is what the shopping list looks like.
Right. Exactly. But it makes it easier later on, I think. You don't have to figure. I met a lot of people that just did not know how to do anything for themselves when they, went out of the house.
I live in Boston.
I was shocked, and I was like, "What do you mean? This is not that hard, you guys." Like,
I live in Boston, and every September when the kids come back, I will always see parents grocery shopping with their kids, teaching them how. I was like, "What? You've never been to the grocery store?" I'm like,
at 18, 19 years old, it's so crazy to me, and it's getting worse.
I know. I was like,
I think it's changing now with like the kids that are really young now. That pattern is going to be disrupted because people are over it completely. Like parents are tired, and that's a good thing because they've done too much over the past 15 years or so. But oh man, it's just shocking to me. Like just stop. And you don't have to say, listen, I'm not going to make you breakfast anymore. You can say, hey, listen, I'd be really excited to teach you how to make an egg.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, we're going to make breakfast together, and like, this is going to be something that you're going to be doing moving forward. Like, yeah, I'm not, not totally, this is Nazi Germany being like, okay, throw you in the deep end. So
Go for it.
And everything you've given, I absolutely love it. And you guys, like, I didn't know what to expect from this conversation. I've literally stalked this woman. I've read all her stuff, and everything just seemed like, whoa, this is just like really good. And so, as I mentioned, we're coming off of this, slowly coming out of this pause. And, I'm going to say probably for the next 18 months to 2 years, we have the time. So take the time to decide, how do you want your life to look like, the back nine, if you will, to look like. Because if the front line has just made you felt like you were like running into a burning building every day, then take the time. Her resentment journal sounds fabulous. She's got other tools, other things that can really help you out. I'm going to link everything about her in our show notes. But as I wrap up the call, the one thing I have to ask, what makes you feel magical?
You know what makes me feel magical? This is an easy answer for me. There is something about the way that I was created that makes it very easy for me to see the connections between how somebody feels, the symptoms in their body, and the symptoms in their life. I'm able to make connections that other people can't see. And I don't claim it as like I'm better at this than other people. I don't even try to do it. It's just so natural to me that to me it has to be magic. There's no other answer for it. So my magic is connecting the dots in your life and showing them back to you in a way that allows you to understand why the headache is related to the egg pan.
Right.
Right.
I absolutely love it. This has been a phenomenal conversation. I thank you from the bottom of my heart to the top of my heart for joining me on today's show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast to talk to you, and I'd come on anytime.
All right. Thanks, Caitlin. And you guys, everything will be linked up in the show notes. If there's someone that is burnt right the fuck out, do me a favor. Take a screenshot of this and tag both Caitlin and I on the gram, and make sure you send it to someone, because it's done. We're over it. Like burnout leaves us today. Like 2020 is the year burnout goes away. All right. Have a fabulous day. I love you all. Thank you for listening to the Fit Girl Magic podcast. If you've made it this far, yay. I'm thinking you enjoyed the show. Let's continue the conversation on Instagram. You can find me at Kim Jefferson Coach. In order for me to keep sharing this message, do me a favor and leave me a 5-star review on iTunes. While you're there, don't forget to subscribe so that you won't miss an episode. New episodes are available every Wednesday. The Fit Girl Magic podcast is intended to provide you with tips, tools, and strategies that will help you make better decisions about your health. I really appreciate your feedback and your support. Thank you so much.